Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about ads and the algorithm. So we find that, first of all, there's a million different things that you can do when optimizing your ads, so it can be pretty complicated sometimes. But we also find that there's really kind of two main buckets, and a lot of times advertisers forget about the one we're going to talk about today. So the one we aren't going to talk about today is the one that's very obvious, is your customer base actually interacting with, engaging with, taking action from your ads. But the other side of this is, are you feeding the algorithm? Are you working with the algorithm? Are you helping the algorithm to actually prioritize you in the auction? And there's really three main ways that you can do that, and we are going to talk about those three ways today. So here we go. Number one is work with the algorithm by feeding it the data that it wants to eat. How do you know what data it wants to eat? Well, any consistent data is what the algorithm is going to want to continue having. And if you cut out consistent data, then that means that the algorithm is kind of stopping and resetting, and so you're not actually building. What's an example of this? What am I talking about? Well, for example, if you launch a set of ads with a new account, for example, and we'll talk about more consistent accounts in a minute, but if you have a new account and you are launching new ads and none of them are performing right, it does not make sense to cut all of them and launch all new ads unless none of the ads have any data. So usually there'll be one ad that the algorithm kind of chooses to prioritize with spend. You can see it's getting clicks. Maybe it's getting further down the funnel with product views. Maybe it's getting even further to add to carts. Maybe the cost per add to cart is even pretty good. And if you see this, even if sales aren't coming in yet, don't cut that top creative. Test against it. If you're testing 3 creatives at once, then cut the bottom 2, start testing against them to keep feeding the algorithm, but don't cut the one that the algorithm feels it's getting the most data from. Now, if you're a consistently spending account, same thing here, and we call these hero creatives, right? Hero images, hero videos, and basically that's just a glorified term for Facebook choosing one star of the show and spending all of the money or sending all of the traffic and spending all the money on one ad. And maybe that ad had good performance, but then it's falling off, or maybe it's not presenting the brand in the way that you would like, and so you're trying to move away from it. But when you're testing against this thing, the algorithm keeps on choosing it. Well, except in extreme cases, unless you're a pretty advanced media buyer knowing how to aggressively cut, we never recommend cutting that top ad. We recommend testing against it. Eventually you will find another creative that's kind of working with the algorithm, and eventually you'll be able to move away from that hero creative. And the second point, which I'm about to go into, also talks about how to do that even better and faster. The second point here is social proof is king, and that is actually the way that the algorithm team built the algorithm, that ads in the auction of priorities and who gets prioritized above what and which ads get prioritized above others. The element of social proof is at the very top. There's nothing that can trump social proof. So if you have one of those hero ads, remember that. Or if you have one of those initial ads that took off in your new account and you can't really, it's not really performing, but it seems to be the only one that Facebook will really spend on, that is usually because those ads have social proof and the ones coming in have nothing. And so the algorithm will always prioritize the ones that do have social proof. So there's ways to try to get that social proof. We're not going to talk about that in this session today, but it's good to just be aware of it. It's important to be aware of it so that you know that it's not necessarily this ad performs better than this ad, but it's that this ad has more social proof and is being prioritized by the algorithm in the auction, and this one doesn't have that social proof yet. And so you're able to actually make smarter decisions that way. The third thing here is that if you're running 2 ads side by side in the exact same ad set, the exact same audience, it is not necessarily showing to the same audience. So Facebook is very quickly testing new creatives and then making subsets of those audiences to show that ad to that are most likely to respond well to that. So if you're testing 2 different creatives, there's a good chance that those creatives are showing to 2 different groups of people. And so if you understand that, then oftentimes if there's completely different looks and feels of creatives, it might make sense to not just have one where you're optimizing down to just one creative it might make sense to actually keep 2 or 3 creatives live, so long as they're all within an overall range of performance and not just optimized down to one, because you're actually accessing new groups of people that can be exposed to your brand. So those are the 3 ways to really work with the algorithm. You'll be shocked how much power that can bring you if you understand in the background what's happening with the algorithm. Hopefully this helps you out as you're optimizing your ads. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.